Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network. Welcome to one of our ongoing series, Unlocking Mysteries of the Universe. Today, we're joined by Jim Vieira. He's a stonemason, writer, and star of the History Channel's Search for the Lost Giants. You may have seen him with his brother, Bill. He currently lives in Ashfield, Massachusetts, and is an author of two books, Giants on the Record, written in 2015, and The Giants of Stonehenge, written in 2021, last year. I introduced to you the one, the only, Jim Vieira. Welcome to the show, Jim. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Paul.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. So what's new? I got how's the show going on the History Channel way?
Well, we've done a series of shows. We've done Search for the Lost Giants, a couple Lost Colony of Roanoke documentaries for history. We were supposed to do a third one, and then COVID hit, so that's been on pause. We haven't done, my brother and I haven't done our own shows in a couple of years, but I've appeared on Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates and Megan Fox's show, Ancient Aliens, Expedition Bigfoot, William Shatner's Unexplained. So I've been on a bunch of other people's shows making appearances. And this is my stonemason season. You know, I work about 7 days a week for like 6 to 7 months and then take the winters off.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing stonework and doing an independent documentary in October, or at least I'm filming in Egypt on October with my co-author Hugh Newman, and about the Lost Hall of Records, Edgar Casey's idea that under the part of the Sphinx, there's an ancient repository of records, because Casey believed that Atlantean survivors showed up, built the Great Pyramid Complex in like 10,500 BC, not 2650 BC like mainstream archaeology dates it. So
Yeah.
I like the Casey stuff. I find it kind of an interesting idea.
I've always liked Casey's views and thoughts on all that, especially ancient Egypt and Atlantis. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, Casey talked about Atlantis being historical reality, like Plato, in the Middle Atlantic. The thing that, you know, the skeptics or the scientific community kind of operates like an atheistic cult. I mean, there's error on both sides. Like there's kind of an extreme conspiratorial wing of the ancient mysteries world. Then there's a dogmatic and arrogant and dismissive skeptics wing that, you know, I know a lot of professionals. I work with a lot of professionals. Most go about their business and they're reasonable people, but there's some hardcore skeptics who are kind of much more assholes that are addicted to being right than finding out the truth. But anyways, when you view Casey's stuff, you realize that, you know, he's the godfather of holistic medicine. All his metaphysical teachings align with like the masters throughout history, you know, Lao Tzu, Ramana Maharshi, the things he said about the nature of immortality, like the immortal nature of the soul, what's going on in time and space, how you kind of, in an open-ended circle, you kind of reawaken to what we were, kind of we've fallen into matter. He lines up with Blavatsky and Steiner and some of the great mystics as well. So I think there's a lot to be learned from the Casey material, but I like to fact check his ancient mysteries teachings.
Yeah.
Now he would go into a trance-like state, and he only had like an 8th grade education, but he said he would tap into the Akashic records, a universal library, and give health readings. But he also started to talk about Atlantis and reincarnation. And he was a conservative Christian, so that he was really bummed out at first, because a lot of what he was channeling was not in alignment with conservative Christianity. So the moral of the story is I like to, you know, check his readings for their veracity. And he's been writing a lot of things. He said that people were in the United States much more in ancient times than the Clovis Barrier, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 years. And now we know that's a fact. He talked about ancient cataclysms and other things have been verified by science. So, I just find, I'll also say I've done a lot of Casey conferences, and they're not like the Casey people aren't like glassy-eyed zombies. They're like cool people. They're nice. They're open-minded. There's not a weird cult-like feel to it. So I like that as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, and like you said, you work with a lot of scientific disciplines out there, from probably archaeology, anthropology, um, probably physicists and stuff like that, testing of the materials and stuff. And yeah, like you said, there's those that are looking for the truth, and those that are looking to just satisfy the establishment. And I think we see that everywhere, especially nowadays. You've got two sides of the scope, but what we're looking for truly, especially now, we're trying to find the truth. Where do you see, and not to give any names, but where do you see, you see a lot of that, two sides of these playing fields, one are just, they just want to throw out some information regardless.
Certainly. If you've ever watched our shows, there's a stream of academics, skeptics, historians, archaeologists. I am open. I understand skepticism, and oddly enough, I am actually fairly skeptical. And there's no peer review in the alternative realm, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of snake oilers and bullshit artists. There's incorrect information that's passed around in on the internet or in people's books, ancient mysteries researchers, uh, that go unchecked, if you will. So you got to do your due diligence. There's a lot of Graham Hancock, Greg Little. There's a lot of very fastidious and meticulous researchers out there, but there's a lot of grifters and bullshit artists too. And especially in the conspiratorial realm, it's just like you're making shit up, you're giving the audience what it wants to hear. It can be a good gig, like, oh, I'm on TV, oh, my face is on a bus in New York City, oh, I'm the big hero, and it can go to your head. And you know, writing books and doing TV shows is better than doing hard labor at the quarry.
Yeah.
So it can turn into that type of thing. That's why I personally just stonework pays all my bills, and I take the winters off, and then I write, and I'm really I find so many of these subjects fascinating. Was there a lost civilization? The idea of giants, the idea of these strange extraterrestrial gods, these aquatic beings that show up all around the planet. We've talked about this, and I know you filmed a couple of my talks, but I find that there's like a rigidness and almost looking over your shoulder in academia that really hamstrings. Because I've spoken at anthropology classes, university classes, with a friend who's a skeptic and an anthropologist, and the students loved it. They asked me great questions. They were very interested in a lot of the iconography and the accounts that I brought up. But I don't believe in vast conspiracies, because there's millions of academics just kind of independently doing their job.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of a rigid paradigm, and you step out of it and you're ridiculed, or it's just I think everybody knows how to sell out. Everybody knows how not to rock the boat. It's like, oh shit, I got to put my kids through school, or my wife's going to leave me, or like I got to pay my car bill.
Yeah.
And I personally, not on I'm the fountain of wisdom, but I live in a 10 by 12 cabin. I have no debt. I don't, really do anything for money, other than I love doing stonework. I do it like on the weekends when I'm not working.
Yeah.
So I really feel I'm well positioned, because I have friends who were, skeptics. I have friends who are clairvoyant. I bring it all in. I evaluate it. I do a comparative analysis. I've studied with a metaphysical kind of spiritual teacher for 25 years. I've done a million ayahuasca ceremonies. I really give a shit about the truth, and that's where I'm coming from. I think I'm fairly well positioned, and I've learned a lot of my own errors and how to reevaluate. So this has been very helpful for me to be in this realm for about like 30 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. You and me too, brother, at the ayahuasca. Mine was in December of last year, and I tell you, It's a life changer. It makes you see through the theater that we're all pushed into, or that we all, choose to be into. Um,
Yep.
and what is your your experience with as far as the work that you're doing now and ayahuasca? Has ayahuasca kind of opened your eyes in this field? Has it given you more of a foresight in your studies?
I definitely believe that to be the case. Now, I had a traumatic brain injury when I played football. I fractured my skull and ended up with a TBI and a seizure disorder, a very intractable one with like waves and waves of petit mal seizures and hospitalizations with grand mal seizures and uh, you know 10 minutes of convulsing and stuff like that. So I heard, or I was told, that ayahuasca was very helpful for this kind of intractable seizure disorder and head injury. So I went down to Ecuador and I spent a lot of time with the shamans. I would do 15, 17-hour ceremonies with ayahuasca, with San Pedro, um, on and on and on. And I took a lot of time and a lot of soul searching as well. And what
Yeah.
I found is, the shamans will tell you that it's like ayahuasca is a spirit. For people unfamiliar with it, I think it's a root in a vine,
Mm-hmm.
and the root has DMT, dimethyltryptophan, I believe. It's made in vast quantities in the brain before you die and when you're born. And then the root or the vine is the MAO inhibitor that, when put together, it stops the enzymes killing off the DMT in the gut. So the shamans were told by the spirits of the forest how to put these two substances together from a library of millions.
Yeah.
And they told someone like James Narby and some of the early anthropologists that the spirits basically told them how to do that. And I found that ayahuasca puts to sleep, just like other psychedelics, the separate self, the ego, right? The mind is a poor master, but a good servant, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the operating software of the body, Edgar Casey, Ramana Maharshi, all the masters would say it's fine as an operating system to navigate the matrix, but when you over-identify with the separate self, you're filled with fear, you're filled with worry and concern, and ayahuasca puts that voice to sleep so you can see with clear vision. Psilocybin does the same thing. So what I found was, not only was my symptoms mitigated and my seizure disorder went away, that means no seizures, no medication for close to 20 years now, not even an aura or a precursor to a seizure. And I had like massive depression, and it was really bad news for me. But I found that it opened me up to like self-reflect, admit when I'm wrong, want nothing out of people, no transactional relationships, no weird like special relationships, as the Course in Miracles would say, like I can get this out of this person. And like everyone else, I suffered from loneliness and desperation because I was misperceiving my what I am and the reality,
Yeah.
and I burnt that out of my system. So I really feel that now I really don't want anything out of anybody, and I think I'm well positioned. And I learned a lot from my mistakes, and I think that's what ayahuasca. And one thing I've been looking into is ketamine infusions as well, because uh, I know that it helps on a physiological level to rewire the brain. So I've been looking into that, and I'm open to all these ideas. I'm open to any kind of self help, frankly. And I think ayahuasca, and I know you've had a very good experience with it,
Yeah.
as a master teacher and a master spirit, that is heartening, because it's like, holy shit, there is a benevolent force that exists, like an angelic realm, if you will, that if I reach out to it, it can interface with me and assist me from freeing myself from my misperceptions. Because I am not a victim of the world. I am the creator of the world, the
Yeah.
creator of my life. And once you realize that, you can change it and not be a victim of it.
Heck yeah. I noticed Metaphysical Secrets of the Ancients. You had you had the Origins conference back in, was it, back in October of 2020.
Yeah.
Um, uh, can you touch a little bit about that? What was
Yeah, I did a Hugh Newman is my co-author. He's the English guy on Ancient Aliens. He's runs Megalithomania, his videos all around the world. He was just at Karahan Tepe, a new site in Turkey that's over 12,000 years old. There's like a super civilization that they're unearthing.
Yeah.
It's wild, wild
Yeah.
shit,
Was it? Yeah. Gobekli Tepe. Oh man. I.
right?
Jeez. I want
And
to
but the
see that.
whole area, I think the Turkish archaeologists, they're digging into like 12 different pyramidal mound forms, and they're finding the most massive megalithic site and settlement in human history. And
Wow.
it's like it's at least 11,600 years old or older, unheard of. Like 30 years ago, if you asked any archaeologist if that's even possible, um, they would say absolutely not. And that's one of the arguments about Egypt, about the Great Pyramid being 10,000 years old. In the 90s, when Dr. Robert Schoch said, "Oh, look at the weathering on the Sphinx." He's the geologist from BU that was on Charlton Heston's show about the mystery of the Sphinx. He
Yeah.
said this indicates a super ancient date for the Great Pyramid, and he was scoffed at by archaeologists like Dr. Mark Lerner and Zawi Hawass and others. And one of their arguments was there was no contemporaneous structure or civilization that's 10, 12,000 years old on the
Yeah.
planet. They didn't know about Gobekli Tepe at the time. It was just being unearthed in 1994. So the moral of the story is, it's good to have an open mind, and new scientific finds are kind of verifying this story. Anyways, to loop on back, Hugh does a conference every year, the Origins Conference in London. I speak at it pretty much every other year, and he has great videos. Megalithomania, he does tours. I go to Egypt with him and other places. So I did Metaphysical Secrets of the Ancients, and what I talked about was basically the way psychedelics have been used all throughout history. The Eleusinian mysteries in Greece, in fact, like the Essenes and the Gnostics and some of the early Christians, it was basically a psilocybin cult and of Amanita muscaria and psilocybin. It's in all the glass, the stained glass in the European cathedrals,
Yeah.
the old tapestries. I show all the images, the Mesoamerican people, indigenous people as well. So I went through the history of psychedelics being used for religious purposes,
Huh.
and these strange androgynous gods who showed up to repromulgate society around the world after a cataclysm. And they are the ones who set up the mystery schools. And the mystery schools that, the old scientists like Plato and Pythagoras, they were a blend of science and spirituality, right? They were not left brain, male dominated, you know, uh, you know, marginalized individuals that we have today, cold and calculating and kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
and they view, like an atheistic cult. I know it's an indoctrination. I'm not taking a swipe at anybody, but that's part of where the rubber meets the road. If you are into academia, these ideas are mocked. Anyways, all the old scientists were a blend of that, Herodotus and on and on and on. So you have, a merging of these two disciplines, and the mystery schools that were set up around the planet in Egypt, the Assyrian school, the Eleusinian mystery schools, like I said, and others used psychedelic substances to take the initiate and basically show them their true self.
Yeah.
Know thyself. Know thyself isn't like, oh, I'm the temporary movie character Jim Vieira, and he's good at golf, but he sucks at this. It's like, no, the movie character is a temporary manifestation that essentially is not part of your eternal essence. Now
Yeah.
that's disconcerting to people. Like, oh, I kind of like myself, and but it's an amalgam of experiences that really, don't stick around, because truth and reality is temporary, flawless, unchangeable, not rooted in time. This is in fact a projection from outside of time and space, a field of perfection, as Rumi or Ramana Maharshi would talk about, that is like such an awe-inspiring existence you can't even comprehend it. That's what you are in reality, the substrata, the ocean, not the wave, if you will.
Yeah.
So I talk about how I've studied the Course in Miracles. I've studied Ramana Maharshi, Lao Tzu. I started reading all the non-dualistic masters in my teens, Upanishads, Advaita Vedanta. I didn't even know why, and I didn't even understand what it really meant, like Alan Watts, until I got around 28 or 30, and I started doing the Course in Miracles, which
Yeah.
is a non-dualistic thought system. Now, the point I'm making is all throughout history, every enlightened master, and I study with one, and I've transcribed 25 years of sessions with him and my, along with my brother. Um, all the masters say the same thing about the nature of reality, that this is a temporary manifestation. It's like the prodigal sons and daughters carrying out a thought experiment. And you can make a case that, uh, if you're not having a good time, you can look at this like this kind of blows. Everybody I love appears to die. There's suffering in this world. It's kind of a freak show. Like, what is going on here? And
Yeah.
the masses will tell you it's a temporary experience, and you liberate yourself from understanding that you are the blank movie screen that the characters flow through, or you are the sky and the clouds move across. But when you identify with the separate self, the movie character, that's pain, that's suffering, that's desire that runs out of control. Like the Buddha said, it's attachment to desire. It's not even desire. The attachment to the body, the attachment to the physical form, uh, leads to suffering.
Yeah.
And I know that's easier said than done, but it's more like like we're really so rooted in like, what time is it? Oh, I'm broke. Oh, she doesn't love me anymore. Like all this pain comes from the weird machinations and desires of the movie character,
Yeah, our attachment to it,
attachment to it.
and dependence. It's like we become dependent of the materialistic things.
Absolutely. And there's long-standing patterns, there's karma. I believe that, the people that orbit in your life, you orbit in lifetime after lifetime, like karmic friends that are waking each other up and helping each other get back to reality, if you will, to
Yeah.
dissolve the separate self. So we've all have difficulty, we all have uh, uh, karma to work out. But the masters would say, judge not lest ye be judged, not because you're a fake good person, because there is only one mind, because it's a holographic reality. There's the God mind, which you are, which most people can't accept. You are the divine field. So if you shit on someone or you judge someone, you're not off the hook for all the weird and embarrassing things you've done in this lifetime and others. And even if it's somebody who appears that your judgment is justified, it is not, because this is a temporary acid trip that we're experiencing that does not change the perfection of what we are.
Yeah.
Now, our weird movie characters will go up and down and appear to change, but the substrata, the field that we are, does not change. It's eternal, immovable. There is no, that's what non-duality is. There is not another. Now, the experience that we are having right now, it appears that that is the case. And you don't want to denigrate this experience, but it is not our true state. So, a megalithomania, metaphysical secrets of the ancients, Jim Vieira, if you want to watch that video, anybody listening, I think you dig it. I mix in. I'm a freak. I'm like the Rain Man. I can't take care of my basic needs, but I comb through thousands of documents. So I always, in all my videos and presentations and shows, I try to throw out a lot of historical documentation for the case I'm making. I don't make any shit up. I don't depend on some fake whistleblowers, some bullshit fake base in Antarctica. There's so much horseshit out there that it's disconcerting, and it's doing a disservice to people. I try to share, I don't really even theorize too much. I share people who have done it, historians who have talked about, and witnessed ancient events, spiritual masters who become enlightened. That's what I share, not some horse shit to make me seem smart or to like support my case. It's more
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a comparative analysis I engage in.
Yeah. Now bring up the holographic universe.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of talk about that in the last several years, but I'm starting to see it a lot. What are your thoughts on the theory of the holographic universe?
The first time I was introduced to it, Michael Talbot wrote about it, the holographic universe. It's brilliant. In fact, I think at the end of my talk, I give a quote from Talbot's book. He's passed away, unfortunately.
Mm.
Um, but the holographic universe is, see, we all are introduced to metaphysics at different developmental steps. In this lifetime, I think this is one of the lifetimes that, Eckhart Tolle, right? He becomes enlightened, he freaks out, he flips out on a park bench,
Yeah.
and he's ready to flip the switch. He's seasoned through his past lifetimes. And I think we're going through these lifetimes of really burning off our bad karma, really figuring out what was going on. But even from an early age, I was very oriented towards like aggressive and zealous investigations into metaphysics and ancient mysteries. And I spent a huge amount of time just downloading books and stuff like that. And it sets the stage for to be open, to these ideas, these metaphysical ideas that are tough to stomach sometimes. And I'm sorry, what was your original question? I want to loop back
The
in.
holographic universe theory.
Holographic universe. So I was indoctrinated into the idea in Michael Talbot's book, and it was like just this light went off inside me. I was filled with like awe, if you will. I saw like a connection in the universe. Look at the night sky, like everything is interconnected. And it was one of those moments where a remembrance, not new information, but a remembrance of what is reality and what I am came back to me.
Yeah.
And what it states basically is that everything we are experiencing here is a projection from the field, from the God field. God isn't some weird lunatic in the sky with a beard who judges your actions. There is no other. You are the God field. There is no separation, which is tough to stomach because, right? Oh, look, I got hands. I'm talking, my movie character, blah, blah, blah. This guy's going to be gone. Hopefully I got 20 or 30 good ones left, and then see you later. And then I got another costume for my next movie adventure until
Yeah.
I break the cycle of reincarnation and I awaken back into the field. And if I'm a master, I can decide to come back and live a blissful existence. But these freaking lifetimes where you're all wrapped up in the separate self and you're filled with worry and anxiety, that is not cool. So it's worth digging into these concepts and doing the work. And the holographic universe is basically telling you you can be the biggest loser and you can delay all you want, but you cannot change the perfection of what you are, because it's a field of bliss it's an abstract state of awareness. It is not concrete and specific and localized like this weird acid trip hallucination that we're having in bodies. It's
Yeah.
completely different. And you get that sometimes when you do ayahuasca or you meditate a lot. You're filled with this blissful field, right? And that is what at its core, the holographic universe idea is telling us, that it's what all the mystics say. Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, some of the greatest masters, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, they also say the same thing about the nature of reality, that it's a temporary hallucination to awaken from. And they're not telling you to denigrate yourself or others or your experience. They're telling you to stop being deluded by the weird and greedy and selfish and fear-based separate self. That is all. And we all feel like, oh, I can't stand that person. For instance, the Course in Miracles talks about special love. Like, oh, I love, oh, my family's so important. Oh, I love her so much, my wife. The guy down the street I'm indifferent to. Oh, I hate that person. It's like a zero-sum game. The love that you withdraw or you overemphasize to someone else, some special character who gives you all your endorphin hits or whatever, or your fake purpose in life, you are withdrawing that love from others. You are not equal in your love. Like Ramana Maharshi would radiate this love towards everyone. He
Yeah.
never wanted anything. He would get up in 3 a.m. at the ashram and cook for everyone. And he would like push away anybody trying to give him special treatment.
Huh.
And that's a great role model. That's a great way to live. Don't be so worried about what the movie character is going to get. Engage in holy relationships, not special temporary relationships that are filled with greed and transactional natures, because it's the path to hell, basically. So all these thought systems are telling you to basically, and it's not easy. I went through like a massive depression a couple of years back after I was going to get together with someone in a relationship, and I was filled with all this weird fantasy and all this karma and grief came up, and I did lots of ceremonies and around it, and basically it burned all that weirdness out of me, like the desperation to be in a relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's when it's filled with kind of desires and fantasies and desperation, it can get very painful. That's my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of sabotage ourselves when we have those misled emotions get in the way. Definitely.
Yes. No, it's true. Fantasy is a big part of our delusion. We fantasize about what it means. We derive drug hits from individuals or situations, whatever, and sometimes you just get a weird neurochemical benefit or hit from the weird upside down stuff like shame or guilt. It's like the movie The Secret. You really get to analyze what's getting you off and why you are addicted to it. And
Yeah.
that's a healthy thing. Like social media, I can't stand personally. It's just like it's like doing coke at 4 in the morning. You're all burnt out looking for the next hit, man. It's just a dopamine distraction that makes you feel uneasy and just looking for the next hit, or addicted to outrage, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's addicted out. Nobody can leave anybody alone. And just like, because the whole system weaponizes the algorithms, weaponize your preferences, and you're drawn in, and you're like, you read one article that's a little left or a little right, and then it goes worse and worse down the rabbit hole. Then
Yeah.
you're on YouTube watching crackpot videos at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yep. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a system. Man, we could talk about so many different things on this show. Man. I want to touch base on your two books.
sure.
I'll have these up later too on the show, but your first book here, Giants on the Record, that you co-authored with Hugh Newman.
Yes.
Um, now this is specifically for the Americas, correct? This is the ancient giants of North and South America, basically
Just North America.
just North America.
Yes.
All right. What is the key? What was the most interesting point that you would like to bring up on this that
Oh,
I could
sure.
share?
Well, I'll say I started being a stonemason, being a hiker. I'm out in Western Massachusetts. Grew up in Boston, went to UMass, studied economics, and landed out here with my brother. And I started to find strange, like turtle effigies, uh, serpent walls, anthropomorphic forms, things that did not look colonial. And I started to wonder, did Native Americans build with stone in the Northeast like they do in other parts of the country, like the Ohio River Valley, the Anasazi, the Pueblo peoples out west? They certainly built a lot of stonework. And so what I did was I started reading through County histories in New England with the idea that, oh, the colonists must have showed up and encountered Native American stone constructions and wrote about them in their records. And in fact, they did. Indian stone fences built in the Indian tradition without mortar, things like that. There's a lot of like stone chambers and really mysterious structures out in the woods here. It's kind of a cool endeavor. But while I was doing that, I started to find these bizarre giant skeleton accounts all throughout town and county histories, archaeological reports. Very well respected doctors, anatomists, um, archaeologists were reporting enormous, not just 7.5, but 8, 9 foot tall skeletons all around the country. The Smithsonian's ethnology reports are littered with massive um, giant skeleton reports, jawbone fitting over the face, over and over again, the clearly massive individuals. And all the early explorers encountered native chiefs that were like 7 foot tall, 8 foot tall, sometimes over 9 foot tall. And the same story from Patagonia to Virginia. You have Magellan, De Soto, all the chronicles wrote about encountering giant native chiefs.
Yeah.
And the Native Americans themselves have legends that date even further back of cannibalistic kind of a-hole giants like you find in the Bible. And then you go to Peru and Ecuador and Bolivia, and you have the same accounts and you have the same legends. So anyways, I found the entire thing fascinating. I got together with Hugh Newman and we wrote a book about it. And if you read my book, you just, first of all, we got lots of mostly 5-star reviews for both our books in on Amazon, because we just go through and we just document it. We give Native American oral traditions. We work with Native American scholars. We don't, I don't know. I just think we tell a fun and interesting story. I'll just talk about one of the most interesting aspects for me is I'm a recovering Catholic, so I have no skin in the game. I'm not trying to prove or disprove the Bible, but I just found it interesting that the giant of Gath in the Bible has 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Uh,
And I do an entire video just alone on that one subject, polydactyly, extra digits, at Hughes Megalithomania site. Um, and what I found was, so the giant of Gath has 6 fingers and 6 toes in Samuel 21:20, and the entire world, isolated Pacific Islands, Australia, is littered with giant feet and giant hands and rock art and statues with extra digits. It is utterly remarkable. The entire northwest, southwest of America has these handprints of feet. I'm sorry, handprints with 6 toe fingers, feet with massive 6-toed representations. Georgia, Illinois, Tennessee, North Carolina, the entire freaking country. Like I said, isolated Pacific Islands and legends of giants, along with at Tarawa, isolated Pacific Island, I.G. Turbot, 1949. He shows up, he meets with the elders, he finds giant, almost impossible to believe, carved or impressed footprints with 6 toes. He's a certified anthropologist. He is blown away by it. He meets with the Enimani, the old men who tell him that of the tales of the giants who made them and
yeah.
the graves of the giants. It's such a fascinating story. The entire world is littered with tales of floods and giants and little people. And so I just went nuts with it. I said, this is such a fascinating subject, and did a show for history. I've done lectures and written books. Um, and I think, I'm not into the weird, conspiracy. I'm not, that's unfair, because I was conspiracy minded for a while. And there are conspiracies in the world. Don't get me wrong. There's Building 7 and 9/11.
Yeah.
What the hell happened to Jeffrey Epstein? I get it.
Yeah.
But you can go down the rat hole of it that isn't benevolent. There's no nice message. There's no, you know what I mean? It's just a miserable slog through a hellhole. And yeah, of course, it's a dualistic universe. There's assholes and there's angels and there's demons. None of it is real temporarily. But while we're having this experience, yes, it is. It's real temporarily.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just push that away. But I really feel like ancient mysteries should lead to the metaphysical, to the real questions, like what the hell are we doing here? And in
Yeah.
fact, Megan Fox, she had me on her show, and we talked and we stayed in touch. And she's really bright. She's really metaphysically oriented. And she said, the only thing that interests me in life is ancient mysteries and metaphysics. And I recommended she read The Disappearance of the Universe, which is Gary Renard's book about the Course in Miracles. She read the whole thing. She started. She said she's looking in the mirror in the gym, and her image is disappearing, and all this
Yeah.
weird stuff was happening
Is that
to her.
is
So
that the copy of the book that you had when the last two shows we did, the one in Jacksonville? Remember you had a book with you about the Course in Miracles.
that was Gary Renard's third one.
Okay.
The lifetimes when
I bought a copy of that actually.
That's a good move. The lifetimes when Jesus and Buddha were friends.
Yeah.
And it goes through the lifetimes where they were in different configurations as students of Plato, as students of Lao Tzu. All the masters taught them. And then Jesus and Buddha, actually, if you study the ascended master teachers of Gary Renard, they say they incarnated together with Mary Magdalene. And in the last lifetime, when Jesus was crucified and Mary was there, and the Buddha was Philip, not in the Bible. They all became enlightened in that final lifetime. So it's a really interesting, which means they left the matrix. That's
Yeah.
Jesus didn't get, he felt no pain because all guilt had been removed from the mind. That's what Gary Renard's teachers say. So crucifixion was showing people that death is an illusion. The body appears to die, but the spirit, the field lives on forever. So it was a metaphysical teaching. Of course, people who didn't understand, like Paul the apostle, the founder of the church, who hated Mary Magdalene because Jesus and her were both masters, and he was kind of a moron and a piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, he founded the church. It's filled with misperceptions, heaven and hell, all this garbage that doesn't exist, and people are filled with, most Christians I know are like filled with fear and hatred. And I'm not going to like point anybody out. There's good Christians and bad Christians, but Christianity taught me like self-hatred and judgment, basically, until I undid it. And that's what most people are faced with. At its root, they perverted the teachings of Jesus and turned it into basically a racist white Christian death cult
Yeah.
that enslaves and colonizes indigenous people all around the planet. And sorry, that's just the truth. And believe me, Islam does the same. Major religions are garbage, is my point. So I don't want to like denigrate anybody's belief systems, but there's a lot of crap out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to tie this up,
Yeah.
I'm always getting tangential, but the idea of giants existing in the past, I think Edgar Casey, Rudolf Steiner, Madame Blavatsky, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, religious documents, they all claim that giants existed in prehistory.
Huh. Man.
So it's an interesting subject. Yeah, that's a newest book right
And then
there.
this is the second, your second book, The Giants of Stonehenge. And this concentrates on the ancient giants of Great Britain, UK. Is it just the UK area? Is
Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and England. And we were going to do like a more expansive book, but when we got into it, and we wrote that, Hugh and I, for like 7 years, just like the first one.
Yeah.
It took a long, long time. There's a lot to unpack. We found that the founding, all, Brutus and Albion, all the founding stories of the British Isles, they all have giants. The Tuatha De Danann, the Fomorians, everybody's coming from a sunken continent in the middle of the Atlantic, and they're giant sized, and they teach the arts of magic and megalithic sciences. It's much more fascinating than just giant bones being reported, being unearthed, and oral traditions. It's a super fascinating story, and it revolves around this idea that giants were part of the population in the ancient past of beings from Atlantis, if you will. That's what Edgar Casey said. He said in Atlantis, which existed in the middle of the Atlantic from the Canary Islands, basically to Bimini, and was destroyed about 11,000 years ago, that there were giants from 10 to 12 feet tall. There were little people. There were normal sized people. There was genetic masters who lived there, who spread out after a great cataclysm. And, basically, the story is just a really fascinating one, just like the United States. We delve into the traditions, the Irish annals, the Tuatha De Danann, the Fomorians, and it's just remarkable. Wherever you turn on this planet, there is like incredible traditions of floods and giants and little people as well. These kind of magicians that, like Uxmal in the Yucatan, was built in a day by little people, and then you go to Peru and you have the same. I think it's Pumapunku was built by a wizard, like a dwarf wizard in a day, and the giants are connected to Stonehenge, and we've uncovered 9'4" skeleton that was unearthed in the 1700s, 14'10" by a member of Parliament and his father. We write about Sir Thomas Eliot. All these highly educated and respected people are witnessing the most bizarre unearthing of giant skeletons, and on and on and on. It's a really fascinating story.
Yeah. Now, as far as evidence, it's been thought that everything that's been left, it seems like a lot of stuff has been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned too, and I've even seen this on a couple programs too, where the what institute is that in DC? The
Smithsonian Institution.
Smithsonian Institute.
Yeah.
Where did all that go? I mean,
well,
They claimed to
there's,
have gotten it, but it was all destroyed.
yeah, in fact, there were a lot of skeletons that crumbled to dust upon exposure to air in the Smithsonian's own ethnology reports, in town and county histories. Oftentimes you get these super ancient skeletons that are exposed to the air that crumble away in 30, 40 minutes. But you do have a lot of skeletons that were wired together. It's amazing when you read, if you read the book, it's just like, oh, the county clerk had the giant skull on his desk. The town was a buzz. You have this photograph or picture of, 8.5 foot skeleton that was found like at Miamisburg by the head of the Smithsonian, Thomas Wilson. And he writes about it, how authentic the find was. It's in the records of many of the Carnegie, of the Smithsonian and other places, but they claim that their largest skeleton that they ever received was 6'3" Sioux Native American who had acromegaly, which is like pituitary gigantism. It's a disease condition. And in fact, when we did our show, episode 2, we're in Staleville. We follow up on an 8.5 foot skeleton that was found. We find a picture of it laying next to a 6 foot man on the floor of a doctor's office that was wired together by University of Missouri archaeologists. It gets shipped to the Smithsonian. We also find in another article, and it's 8.5 foot tall, and we have the visual evidence of it. And we have everybody in town like, oh, my grandfather found it. We found the place in Staleville where the cave was found. I'm sorry, where the giant was found. We found the pit. We found everything to do with the story. It gets shipped to the Smithsonian, and then they're claiming that the largest skeleton 6'3". So definitely some went to crumble to dust. The Native American Repatriation Act in 1990 put a lot of bones back in the ground, which I understand as desecrating Native American burial mounds is not cool. I'm open to it. I will just say this, like, I don't believe in these vast conspiracies. Like the Dragon Man skull was recently found, right? It could be Denisovan, which is a human cousin that made it with us and Neanderthals. But it's like 160,000 years old, I think. And it's a massive, super thick with huge teeth that was found, called the Dragon Man skull. And the other evidence they found at the Denisova cave in Siberia was huge teeth that was so large that they took them to the Max Planck Institute to get sequenced, and they thought they were cave bear teeth, but they were a human cousin that mated with us.
Wow.
So my point is, like, I know plenty of archaeologists. I've done digs myself. I've organized archaeological investigations, and to believe that like all these people are engaged in a vast conspiracy, you lose a lot of people when you say shit like that. As if the professor down the road found something, is covering it up. Now, that doesn't mean, I trust institutions as far as I can throw them. And the Smithsonian had some shady dealings with like David Koch, where they put in, I'll just quickly say, Jane Mayer of the New Yorker wrote an article about the Koch brothers' influence in politics, and how he gave $50 million to the Smithsonian, and they put in permanent exhibits. And this is a real story. This will bend your mind. The David H. Koch Hall of Human Origins talks about climate change, and they don't give any reason why it could happen. They don't mention fossil fuels, because Koch is involved in the fossil fuel game. They leave off the axis on one of the charts, so it's like anybody's guess why the planet is boiling, right? And what they say in the exhibit is, permanent exhibit, I should add, is that in the future, humans will probably adapt to climate change by living in underground structures, growing smaller, growing curved spines in order to deal with climate change. And you could go to the Smithsonian and find this, or find the article about Jane Mayer, award-winning writer for the New York Magazine. I'm sorry, for the New Yorker. So that is what this permanent exhibit is talking about. It's basically, you give us some money, we'll greenwash all your evil deeds because you're a piece of shit and an environmental criminal. And that's what the Smithsonian's all about. Just like every other, a bunch of people patting each other on the back and blowing smoke up the general public's ass,
Yeah.
and not caring about, how they twist reality and facts sometimes. So there are these rigid paradigms. In the late 1800s, there was a war of religion versus science, and rightfully so. Religion had some ideas that were not true and some very backwards leaning things. But I believe there is truth in science, in modern science. There is truth in religious ideas and mystical ideas, and meeting in the middle is the best. But that doesn't happen in our society. Everything is so split and divisive and stuff like that. So anyways, that's what I try to do, is meet in the middle, be objective, make a case, hear people's doubts and skepticism, and try to just deal with it like that, rather than living in an echo chamber of people just supporting each other's ideas, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I tell you, I've always been attracted and connected to archaeology. It was something I was always interested in after high school and into college, and tried to get into the archaeological field by doing an essay. And the award was, I think I won third place or something like that. It was an essay. Third place, first place winner actually won a trip to Chichen Itza, and get to work on the archaeological dig at the time. And that was like back in what, 95, 94, 95. But ever since then, I've always had this passion of, that's why Ancient Aliens and even the stuff that the work that you do and stuff, every time I read about it or look or hear about it, it's like I leave my body and I kind of imagine myself being in that, working in the field.
I think people are intuitively drawn to that. There's a lot of people with the feel that it can bleed into like conspiratorial ideas, because it's like, oh, why don't, scientists acknowledge and understand? And it just takes a long time for science and this peer review. It does take a long time for these things to come to light. And the shit that Andrew Collins, myself, Hugh Newman, Graham Hancock, and others have been saying for 30 years have all proven true. There was a cataclysm. Human civilization is much more sophisticated and older. There was a cataclysmic event. Oh no, I said that. There were humans and Homo sapiens in the United States much earlier than 13, 14,000 years, and that's been verified. Footprints just found from 23,000 BC in New Mexico. We've been beating that drum for a million years, but it just takes time. So I'm not into the conspiracy side of it, but we've both studied Sumerian civilization, and there are so many stories, like the oldest writing in the world, the oldest story in the world. It's like an acid trip. It's a sci-fi movie, and
Like
you don't even have to be into
Gilgamesh.
Yes, the Epic of Gilgamesh. All the Sumerian gods are androgynous. These weird half fish, half human beings. They show up all around the planet. Viera Quetzalcoatl, Fuxi in China, the Dogon in Mali, Africa. They have these fish gods who show up. Oannes shows up on the Persian Gulf with a strange bag, teaching humans how to read and write. So it's like everywhere. It's everywhere. It's on all the statues. It's in all the historical documents. It's all the great chronicles like Berosus talk about it. It's ubiquitous. It's specific, and it's mind bending. And even Carl Sagan said we should look more into these stories of like these gods showing up, and that's what I'm into. They're all androgynous. They're all amphibious, and they're clearly extraterrestrial. Something I was never really into, like the idea of extraterrestrial gods. I would usually talk about things like lost civilizations and human civilizations, but the moral of the story is that's why I think so many people are fascinated with archaeology, because if you objectively read it all, you got to say, like, I don't have a time machine, but ancient people clearly all thought the same, and in a very specific and strange manner.
Yeah.
That's what draws me in.
Yeah. So what's new? What's your next adventure?
I'm doing I got a website I had my friend make for me for people interested in these ideas. Like, there's a link to all my videos at Megalithomania. There's metaphysical stuff with David Godman, Ramana Maharshi, Gary Renard, and there's my appearances as well. JimVieira.com, but it's Vieira. I get two I's. So jimvieira.com. Please feel free to go there if you're interested. In Vernal, Utah, September 8th to the 11th, I think I'm doing Phenomicon, which should be cool. I think the guys from what's that, Skinwalker Ranch? Is that
Oh yeah, Skinwalker Ranch.
yeah, I think one of the guys is there. And Russell Accord is a friend of mine. He's on Expedition Bigfoot. He's like survivalist guy. He's running the conference, and I was on his show, Expedition Bigfoot Season 2. And I'm going to Egypt in October to film the Lost Hall Records documentary. I'm doing an independent documentary. And then the Edgar Casey Foundation down in Virginia Beach, I'll be going there and meeting with John Van Auken, who runs the whole thing. He's gonna show me the last 50 years of investigations that the Casey Foundation has taken out in the Giza Plateau in the search for the Hall of Records. In fact, scientists found a void in the Great Pyramid, like 3/4 of the way up, a massive one, like 30 meters in length. And now they're building equipment to scan like 100 times more magnified. So we're going to find out what the space is, what is in there. I hope we start to unravel these mysteries, because I am not convinced yet that the pyramids were built in 2650 BC. I think Casey may be right. I'm open to change my mind, but I have not seen the solid proof yet. I want more records, more artifacts. Let's see what unfolds, because the pyramids have no hieroglyphs. There was no indication. They are not like other dynastic structures, just like the Assyrian, the pyramid temple. I'm sorry, the Sphinx temple. There are structures in Egypt, the massive megalithic, free of ego, free of hieroglyphs. There seems to be another age of building that took place in Egypt. And we tour with Yusuf Awan, who's an Egyptian stone carver, and his father was a spiritual wisdom keeper there too as well. So Yusuf is really cool. He's on the Egypt tour in October, November. He's going to film with us as well. So I think we got a really cool look at this story about the Lost Hall Records, and I'm writing and gonna make the script for the narration, so there's no network executives dry humping the audience or bullshitting anyone, so I have creative control over that, and should be good. I think people will dig it.
Man, wow. Anybody need an apprentice? I want to go along. Man,
Egypt's pretty cool, man. It's like going to another planet.
Wow.
It's like, wow, everything's supersized, wild. It's a wild place.
Yeah. Man, that'd be amazing. Huh. Let's see. Can you meet? Yeah, it's been an hour already. Holy crap. Let's see. Is there anything else that I need to bring up here? Trying to think. Oh, I got the 2 books. Any new books coming up? Any working on that, or is it all just
I am. I usually write. I take the winters off like 3.5 months, and I go to Stonehenge. My buddy Hugh lives at the caretaker's cottage at Stonehenge. So I visit him. It's a half a mile walk to Stonehenge. So we go for a walk every day. It's really cool. And yeah, it's good. We go to the health club at night. We eat curry, shit on each other, and we write,
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time there, and I'm writing a book about the nature of the gods, the amphibious androgynous nature, how they show up all around the planet. I go through all the documents. It's been years assembling this too. I know I did that talk at Spirit Fest when I was in Florida, and we were hanging out, and I want to put that to paper. I love that story. All the statues, all the iconography, all these weird amphibious androgynous gods. It's such a multi-layered story that I want to just dig into it and tell that story. So that's my next book right now, and doing the documentary. So I can't write during the work season because I just work. I do stonework. I get home, I'm just cooked. So I do a little research and add up, and then I just go nuts in the winter. And that's the next book I'm going to read. I mean, write. Excuse me.
Awesome. Wow. That is cool. That is cool. Well, it's fun as ever to talk to you, man. And it's maybe again get on the show and maybe talk about get a little specific on I mean, shoot, we touched base on giants, we touched base on the androgynous gods, we've touched base on yeah, archaeology. We're all over the place.
Well, yeah, maybe after I get back from Egypt or something like that, check in if you want.
Yeah, do a little touch base or something like that. I'm also probably doing some shows just audio only, and then do you know, just for the podcast networks and stuff like that. But this for the YouTube channel is all the video podcasts, and that way, because nowadays everybody wants to see these interviews instead of just listening to them. But people will be able to listen to this too, because this will be on iHeartRadio, Spotify, a couple other networks and stuff like that. So, but so once again, where can people find you? You got you have your website now, your website, because I remember it was under construction for a while.
No, it's live now.
Okay.
JimVieira.com, Vieira. And there I'll link, there's a link to all my megalithomania videos. I have all these subjects I talked about: Atlantis, giants, the whole gamut, Edgar Casey, it's all there. Books are there, metaphysical stuff, links. That's probably the best place. It'll take you to megalithomania. Same thing. You know, Hugh and I kind of work together hand in glove, and that's the best place to. And if you're interested in metaphysics, I give the sources that have been most useful for me over the last 30 years. Ramana Maharshi, David Godman, the biographer of Maharshi, Gary Renard. He's, of course, a miracles teacher. He's the best. It's like straightforward, blue collar, repetitive. I'm a former coach and decathlete. So, like, my brother and I will like that, like, rigid mind training, cutting through the bullshit, repetitive mind training is like how you undo the your misperceptions and how you get unstuck from your false realities. And that's what I like. I don't like the kind of gooey new age shit that and there's nothing wrong with it, because there's different people resonate at different levels. But for me, I like it just straightforward. Like, don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me what's going on. Tell me what I need to do. Tell me what I should expect if I follow this thought system. Predict what's going to occur to me. And all that has been done by these teachers and by these teachings. And my brother and I are in the same developmental arc as well. So we push, you know, throw the shit back and forth while we're having the same, like, stop the ride, I want to get off kind of experiences, you know, because it gets weird sometimes. So yeah, I'd say that's a good place to get me. And I'd also say, if you're interested, if you suffer from a lot of anxiety and depression, maybe look into ketamine infusions, or psilocybin, or ayahuasca. But I would, there's clinics all around the country. You do like an IV of ketamine, and it's really, look it up, read it, and it can be really life changing. A lot of people with like lifetime depression.
Huh.
There's a class of drugs that's coming out, like mind medicine and Cybin. These companies that have taken these psychoactive components out of psilocybin and ibogaine, and they're making compounds that are having profound effects on people. So look into like psilocybin and the Johns Hopkins University experiments. You know, if you suffer from mental health difficulties, one of the best ways to mitigate that is through psychedelics, and not just like, oh, I'm tripping, dude, but like, you know, read and see what the best substances are, because that's the wave of mental health in the future, is going to be psychedelic compounds. And I know what it's like to suffer from depression because of my brain injury. So I have a lot of empathy for people who have to deal with it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, it's the end of our show, brother.
All right, man.
It's been a wonderful hour.
Yeah, cool. That was good. Good questions. Good discussion. I'll be down in Florida at some point. Tell Mary Ellen I said hi, and Eric the cat. Yeah, we'll
Oh
touch
yeah, the
base.
cat.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, I'm sure I'll see you more towards the winter too as well. But I'll try to catch one of the conferences or something like that, and I mean one of the spirit fests. And thank you for having me on.
I do appreciate it. And once again, everybody, thank you for watching Conscious Radio Network. And thank you again, Jim. And until next time, if this is your first time watching this show, please hit subscribe, like, and share. Tell everybody you know. And until next time, y'all have a good evening.